In this episode, we're going to deal with inductive arguments. Unlike deductive arguments, where the premises guarantee the conclusion, inductive arguments are different. Inductive arguments are such where even if the premises are true, the conclusion is only true to a certain level of probability. Therefore, when we evaluate inductive arguments, what we are evaluating for is to what level of probability is the argument a true or false argument, a good or a bad argument, or shall we say a strong or a weak argument? An argument that is true to a high level of probability is a strong argument, and an argument that is true but only to a very weak or low level of probability is a weak argument. So there are three types of inductive arguments. The first one is called enumerative, as in numbers, enumerative inductive argument. This is an argument based on generalizations that we make from a sample population. We all do it. For example, first the format. All observed P's are R's. Therefore, all P's everywhere are probably R's. For example, if I say that all the cars I've ever seen have 4 tires, and then I conclude that probably all cars everywhere have 4 tires, that is an enumerative analogical argument. How strong or how weak it is going to depend on whether the number of cars I've seen is a good representation of all cars everywhere, and it's also going to depend on whether what I see is representative. The strength or weakness of the argument depends on how well the sample group represents the whole. So maybe there are cars that are 3-wheeled cars, or cars that have more than 4 wheels, and I just haven't seen them. So it doesn't sound like a very strong argument because it's only based on whatever cars I have seen, and that's a very limited number of cars compared to all the cars out there. So the enumerative argument is strong if you have a sample group that really represents the whole. The second type of argument is the analogical argument, where 2 or more things are found to be similar in several respects, so we conclude that they must be similar in one further respect. They come in many formats, but the arguments are pretty much the same. If I say, for example, that the human heart is like a gasoline pump. Why? Because both of them pump fluids. A heart pumps blood, and the gasoline pump pumps gasoline. So if they're similar in the fact that they pump a fluid, then they must be similar in the fact that when a gasoline pump breaks, I can fix it. So when the heart breaks, I should be able to fix it too. See, the problem with that is that the strength or the weakness depends on the degree to which the things you are comparing are relevantly similar. They have to be similar, but not only similar, similar in a relevant way. By the way, about analogies, you should be clear that all analogies fail at some point, since items compared are only similar and not the same. So there are going to be differences. There are always going to be differences. So see the lecture in chapter 7 that gives you 7 steps on how to evaluate analogies. Very important that we master those steps. The third type of inductive argument is called the abductive argument. And it is based on observations and the search for a cause and effect relationships. The search for the best possible explanation. So when you wake up in the morning and your lawn is wet, what's the best explanation for that? You didn't see how it got wet, so you have to come up with the best explanation for it. Could it be that it rained last night? Or maybe the fire hydrant broke and it leaked and you got water all over your lawn? Maybe the sprinkler system is broken. Or your neighbor's sprinkler system is broken. Maybe a helicopter was on its way to turn out a forest fire and dump the water in your yard instead of on the fire. So how do you know which is the best explanation? You need to be able to work through all of the different explanations to decide which is the best explanation. Since nobody was there when they happened and you didn't see it, you have to use abductive reasoning. And so that's another type of argument. Now, how do we know if these arguments are good or bad or strong or not strong? There's 2 principles that are not always 100%, but they help. They're guiding principles. The first one is Occam's razor. And Occam's razor basically says that explanation A is better than explanation B if all other things being equal, explanation A is simpler than explanation B. It's simpler to believe that it rained than it is to believe that there's a helicopter that was carrying water, it was heading for a forest fire, and then it got lost and it accidentally dropped the water. It's too complicated. Explanation A is probably a better explanation. Now, I told you to be careful because sometimes the truth is more complex than the alternatives. So we need to be careful. And the second principle is the principle of conservatism. And that basically says that an explanation is better than another explanation, all things being equal, if it fits together better with what we know about the rest of reality or the rest of the world. And so when we test explanations and see which one fits best with what we know about the world we live in, we are able to eliminate some options and keep other options available. This is Dr. Juan Valdez with Academy of Hope, and that wraps up Inductive Arguments.